Hello and welcome back to Vintage Treasures, and today we're going to be looking at another set of the Real Ghostbusters figures. This wave is from 1990, I believe, and it is an exciting set of figures. Of course, reusing those same Kenner molds for the original 1987 releases of the figures. As you can see looking at the background, we were well into the 90s. Um, it blends seamlessly between the Ninja Turtles in the background and the Ghostbusters up in the front. Now, this wave was released towards the 90s and therefore was closer to the Hasbro Kenner merger of 1991, I believe. Again, correction will be on the screen. Um, and this was one of the last waves of figures we got. I think after this, we got the Slimed Heroes and then we got the Ecto Glows. And anyone's a Ghostbusters collector, I mean, obviously, if you're watching this video, you know how expensive those Ecto Glows are. So, this set is not easy to track down and definitely is hard to get parts for. So, looking here, we have the first of the set of 6 figures, this being Ray's stance. Now, I'll show you on screen right here how expensive these figures are. I don't have all of his parts because they're very expensive, and that little tiny hook on the end of his skateboarding thing is very hard to find. This figure is very expensive if you get him complete, especially with that hook. So I only have the figure. But saying that, this figure is in very, very, very good condition. You can see his hair isn't scraped. Like, there's no paint missing off his head, which is very uncommon for these figures. His elbow pad is mint, and his boots aren't marked up or missing any paint, except for that little mark right there. And there's actually a little tiny chip right there. But this thing is nearly in mint condition. So this is actually from a childhood collection rather than a collector's collection, which is why it surprises me how well he's been preserved. Considering he came out 34 years ago or something close to that. It's pretty amazing how he's held up considering his age. And the next figure in the set of 6 we have here is Egon Spengler. His gimmick's kind of cool. It is the same sculpt as Ray was. It's the 1987 sculpt of the original figures, with a new, more 1990 look for the paint applications. And you can see he comes with this huge backpack piece right here, which I'll show you what that does, and his ghost right here, and we'll take a look at that first. Ghost is fairly detailed. He has a open mouth. He has these eyebrows that look a bit like a mustache, and he has his arms behind his back. And he has his hole in the bottom, which I will show you what that is for later. But the figure's pretty cool, and all these ghosts, their gimmick is that they can attack the person, or the Ghostbuster rather, that is attacking them. So Egon here, this is how this ghost attacks Egon. Just throws himself right onto Egon's head. Egon can't see, and now he's going to walk around like this. And I guess that's the ghost's defense mechanism. Again, it's pretty cheap, but it's a pack-and-heavy type of toy. I mean, these contraptions are pretty large. They take a good amount of plastic. And then you have this big ghost, and then you have the figure itself. I couldn't imagine these were cheap for Kenner to make, so engineering gimmicks and stuff into the ghosts themselves would have been absolutely insane. Now, looking at the backpack itself, it clips in the same way that the original Proton packs did into the original figures, considering it is the same sculpt. Or very similar. I noticed they started using these cone type shapes in the back of the figure rather than those clips that kept breaking. But anyways, bit off topic there. Here is the actual, well, it's not a Proton pack, it is a backpack. And it has a spinning thing on the front. You can see there, it's spinning around. And it can also do it upwards. Now, the gimmick with this one is it's supposed to have a disc on the end that spins around and kind of blows the ghost away. I don't have that little red disc. I'll show it on screen. These parts are really hard to track down, and if you can, they're expensive, as I said. So, I'm satisfied with this for now, but I do hopefully get the pieces in the future. But you can use this ghost, as I said, he has a hole in the bottom. You can plug it onto here and see him spin like a tornado. Again, a pretty cool gimmick. A lot of engineering went into this, considering how much we already were getting with the figure, but I guess they saved a good amount on not retooling the Egon Spengler. The next figure we got in this set was Winston Zeddemore, or Winston Zeddemore, depending on who you ask. And he comes on this cool, I mean, it always reminded me of like Frankenstein, the bed Frankenstein was on when he got electrocuted into life. I might be alone on that. Do tell me in the comments if you agree with me or if I'm crazy, but it always did remind me of that. But this thing is actually pretty cool. Now, I am missing the ghost, and it does come in 2 parts. I'll put that on the screen so you can see what I'm missing. The ghost runs for about 15 bucks, so I'm just kind of waiting to get a good deal on that. Because, 15 bucks is a lot of money to throw on accessories for an action figure. I do want to get this guy complete, and those ghosts are very cool. And again, they do the same thing that Egon's ghost does to him. One of them goes on his head, and the other one goes around his shoulders. Obviously, you can't be in the suit while that's happening. But let's take this backpack off. Show you the actual backpack. Now, this is something I see common on this particular backpack out of the set, is the pegs like to break that hold it into his back. So one of them broke off. I do want to do a better repair than putting masking tape on it. I just haven't thought of anything because it is already a very fragile thing, and I don't have the piece that was on there. It's kind of difficult to think of a way to engineer something that makes sense for the support that has to be on this thing. So this pack can sit on Winston like it did when I showed you first, but it can also do this kind of transforming thing. We can put it on upside down over his shoulders, and he has this guard, and now he can mow down ghosts with this moving disc here on the front to cut the ghosts. And I don't have his ghosts, so I'll use Egon's. You can see he can cut up those ghosts, which again doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because they're ghosts. They're already dead. They can't be harmed by anything. But it is all in good fun, and these toys are for children after all. But overall, this is a pretty cool gimmick for an action figure. Again, something they only got away with because they reused the tooling on the original 87 release and gave it this very, very cool paint job, and I'll show you that paint job right now. See, he has these zaps and these circles on there with the orange, red, and blue color scheme. It reminds me of those cups they have at the hospital. I'll put one on screen so you know what I'm talking about. It reminds me of those. I'm not completely sure why, but I'm pretty sure that was a 90s thing when that pattern came out. So this is a pretty cool figure. Another one I noticed, they don't always nail Winston Zeddemor's skin color. It's a very light complexion for this figure. It was darker in the original, and it's even darker for Ecto Glow. I do hope to get that figure eventually. But yeah, this figure looks pretty good. It is, of course, a repaint, so they can only do so much, but they did a pretty darn good job for a repaint. Looking at this next figure, we have Louis Tully. Now, interestingly, and as you'll see with the next figure, this is the only set we get all 6 members of the Ghostbusters. And what I mean by that is we have the original 4, we have Peter, we have Winston, we have Egon, and we have Ray. But we also have Louis Tully, and we have Janine Miltz. I still haven't nailed how to pronounce her last name, but we have all 6 of the Ghostbusters characters in this set, and it's the only set that we do. Slimed Heroes did have a Louis Tully, but we never got a Janine for that set, and the same with Ecto Glow. So this was the third to last set and the only set to have all the characters from the Ghostbusters Firehouse. Looking here, we'll look firstly at the ghost and the sculpt on this, which is another cool ghost. This guy looks like he came straight out of a can of Cheese Whiz. And he's pretty cool looking. He's got these lanky legs and this kind of melting sculpting going on. It looks like he's melting, which is not helping the fact that he looks like spray cheese. And then we have the figure itself. We have Louis Tully. And he has these stilts. So he can walk around on these stilts, fight the ghosts. Not really sure how much that's helping him. I imagine the stilts would be a lot slower than running on his legs, but but he's kind of a nerd, so he's probably not the most athletic person on Earth. So maybe the robot legs are helping him out. And the sculpting is actually really good on these robotic legs. It's really good. They even sculpted the back of it. And if you take him out of here, as this goes around his waist, you can get him out without ruining him. You can see that it has one of those pegs for the proton pack hole, which they did put on this Lewis tool, even though he wasn't in the original set. And you could put him on there, turn these now pinchers around, and they lock into each other. And now he could pinch the ghosts. So again, there's kind of dual features on this figure. I thought that was really cool. And you can take that ghost he came with, which I'm not sure if the ghost can attack him. Usually they can. I haven't figured out a way to make it look any good, but I'll have to check the card back. I do have the card back for these figures. I bought them separately. I just really like the card backs. So you can see here, you get a little bit of imagination, we'll call it. You can pick up the ghost and drop him, and then celebrate. So looking at the figure itself, it is a pretty nice sculpted figure. This was his first appearance. This is his debut appearance, Louis Tully as a figure. He would have two more, one in the Slime Hero set and one in the Ectoglow set, which was the last set. But he has those geeky, nerdy glasses on, the big round ones, and this plaid kind of 90s neon kind of green, white, and what is that, burgundy kind of color going on. Pretty cool. I can't complain too much about this figure. It looks great. I'd love to make or buy a custom of this figure colored in like a standard jumpsuit so it can fit with the rest of the figures for the 87 release. But these figures aren't cheap. They only came in 3 sets and they're all expensive, the ones I just named. It would be irresponsible to buy these in any reasonable condition and paint over them, so I'd have to wait and find one that's pretty darn damaged for me to feel up to painting it. Now, one thing I did notice, since I have 2 of the 3 Louis Tullys from the line, is these sculpts are not the same. You can see this Slime Heroes Louis Tully is a little bit taller and a little bit bigger. You can especially see it in the shoes. They're bigger. The whole figure's bigger, and I found that really interesting because I've never seen anyone talk about it. You could see his jaw's a little more recessed on the Slime Heroes version. I just found that really interesting. I don't even think that's the same face sculpt. It looks different if you look at it. I'll have to make a separate video about that, maybe a short, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. I'll take a little bit more of a deep dive into it, but that's pretty interesting. It's something I noticed when I first got my hands on the Slimed Hero figure after acquiring this one. The next one in this set is Peter Venkman. I have this one complete as well, and he has this lovely, he shows a little more in person, but it's a burgundy ghost, and it has the accents that match his suit highlights right there in his sleeves. I thought that was really cool. And he has this cool full arm accessory, which I thought was awesome when I saw it, and they did too at Kenner because they decided to reuse it, or rather Hasbro did, in the mid-90s, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's take a look at this ghost first. We have the ghost here, and he's kind of in a punching motion, like a lightning bolt, so he's going very fast, punch Peter Venkman or any of the other Ghostbusters. And he's one of those more squishy toys, which is probably sometimes good, sometimes bad for collectors, because he can't crack, but he can rot, as the hand puppet does in the Fright Zone for Master of the Universe. I haven't seen any of these rot before, but they are only 30, I say only, they're 33 years old, 34 years old maybe, so time will tell if anything changes, but as of now, they're in great condition, and it locks around Peter Venkman's head pretty tightly. That's my thumb, not Peter Venkman's head, but I think you get the gist. Looking at Peter Venkman, We see the figure, which we'll look at in detail a little after, but I wanted to look at this accessory because it's awesome. This thing's cool. It has a cord so you don't lose the missile, or maybe so it's not a choking hazard, although I don't doubt a child could try to eat this missile still. Um, Beautiful green plastic, very 90s. They definitely caught on early with what was going to be hit in the 90s. This missile shoots out. I still have it raveled, so it doesn't go as far as it could, but it does have some good force behind it. I'd probably shoot like 3 feet. And the secondary use for this, as most of them do have secondary uses in this line, is it's a pogo stick. So Peter goes on a pogo stick, and maybe, I don't know, the ghost is right there, and he's distracted and wouldn't notice what looks like a 300-pound pogo stick coming at him. Boom! Again, he hurts the ghost that's already dead. Don't know how that works. But it is cool. I can't complain too much. It's a little goofy, but that's what we were getting from this line at the time, so it fits right in. And we have another near mint figure here. Peter Venkman, as I've already said. His hair isn't bad at all. He's not missing. This is usually where you see the most wear. And it's not missing any paint. The boots are not painted, so that's great for collectors. That's the molded plastic color. This whole thing's molded in green except for the head. So those sleeves can go a little funny sometimes because the accessory is slipping onto his arm. But you know, other than that, it's not much that can go wrong with this figure, which is great. I mean, they painted around all of the proton pack holes, so those probably wore down. With kids plugging in the proton pack into their back. So, I mean, I'm sure that there is some issues that could happen. Now, this is a rare example of a figure from this line having 3 uses for their proton pack. So we saw it can go around his arm as a missile. He can go on it as a pogo stick, as I hit the button to activate it. It could also, a bit like the Boba Fett figure from Kenner, go on his back, and the foot thing kind of acts as a headrest. Again, that could wear paint if you're not careful. Just like Boba Fett, you bend the figure over and shoot the missile. So this actually has 3 uses, which is unheard of in this set of figures. This is the first figure I've seen that has 3 uses for its backpack feature. And the last figure in this set, as I mentioned before, is Janine, and this is her, I believe, 3rd appearance. Yeah, Fright Features, Super Fright Features, and then she had this series, so she has 3 figures, which is great. We didn't get a lot of female figures in these so-called boy-oriented lines, so it's great to see her get represented like she did in the cartoon. So this is one of my favorite figures from the set. Of course, she comes with a little go-kart, but this isn't actually my favorite use for this backpack accessory. But as usual, let's first take a look at this ghost. So looking at Janine's ghost, we can see it has a very ghoulish face with these sharp teeth. A bit frightening even for the Ghostbusters line. We look at the back, we see his spine, or what I'm guessing is his spine, and his rib cage. This is made of the same material that Peter's ghost is made out of, that rubbery material. So that's pretty cool. And you'd expect this figure to not stand up too well, but it doesn't have much of an issue standing up, and it's only fallen off the shelf it's on a handful of times while I've had it in my collection for about 2 years, so the sculpt's pretty good on this one. I actually really dig this ghost. And looking at the proton pack here, or backpack, I keep mixing them up, you can see she has a go-kart, but that is not the end of it. Take the figure off there. You can unplug this handlebar system here, and you'll realize it's plugged into a spoke for a proton pack. You could also, I mean, this thing, I hate transforming this thing because it's kind of scary because of how brittle these pieces are, but you slide these down. They come off the peg up here, not the bottom one, and then you can fold this over, making sure those are down. and put these over that, and now it is held firmly. And you can see it looks like there's little like meat grinder things in there, and because the wheels have gear type things in the end, they both go at the same time. Now I can't really show it on the figure because it's kind of a whole mess to hold it all together, especially on camera, but you can take this ghost and it actually gets sucked into this paper shredder meat grinder type thing. So it's pretty cool. Look at that. Gets sucked right in. The ghost is helpless. It has its arm and its legs stuck in there, and Janine can walk off with the ghost on her back, and the ghost can't do anything about it. And this is the alternate way you can have Janine, again with that pack on her back, to grind that ghost to bits into the backpack and hold it there to get back to that containment unit. And it has this little grabby claw, so you can grab the ghost to get him into that backpack. Obviously, he's not going to get in there himself. It's the same piece the handlebars are. And you can grab that ghost, put it in the back, get him down in there, and then rush off to the firehouse to get him in that containment unit.